You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. I'm excited about today's episode. We've got Scott Wetherbee from Eastern Michigan University on with us. Scott, good morning. How are you doing, man?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure, and we're excited to spend a few minutes together here. You know, we're gonna dive right in because we got a lot to cover, and I know that folks are going to enjoy hearing from you. And you know, when I was going through, doing some background research, and obviously just in my conversations with you over the last several weeks, one of the things that I'm intrigued by is pathways to the chair, the different ways that different individuals ascend to becoming an athletic director. And look, there's no pattern, right? I mean, different folks come to it in different ways. But in your pathway, I find it interesting that you worked at a number of different universities. You know, you started intern, grad assistant, and then you're on the West Coast for a while, came back to the East Coast, came to the Southeastern Conference, and then eventually ended up there in Michigan. And I think that variety of experience is really cool, and I think it's an interesting path. And so I wanted to, we don't need to go through every stop necessarily, but just maybe some thoughts on, you were at Fresno, I think you were at San Diego State, East Carolina, Mississippi State, started school at Ferris State. So maybe some thoughts on some of the learnings along the way, the positives that were outcomes from being those kinds of they're all very different kinds of places. And maybe, give us some insight on a couple of folks along the way that you feel like really sort of poured out into you and you learned from that helped make you the athletic director you are now.
Yeah, I've been around the block here a little bit, around the country for sure. And, each stop had its own, challenges, but also very rewarding. And then I had takeaways from everywhere. And I was fortunate to be around a lot of really good people. At the end of the day, it's relationships and those things. And, my time, it's interesting. Bob Moosbrugger actually gave me my first opportunity, my first full-time job at Fresno State. And Bob now is the athletic director at Bowling Green. So we're in the conference. We're only an hour away from each other. And that was in 1997. So that was dating myself here a little bit. But and so Bob and I have always been close, and he's always been kind of a mentor, but we've also helped each other through a lot here. So he's one that I think of, and then you think of, I had Jerry Tarkanian as my head coach at Fresno State, and Pat Hill in football. And then we moved down to San Diego State. I got married and had Steve Fisher as our basketball coach there, and Tony Gwynn was the baseball coach. And but it was a quick stop. It was one of those where my wife and I just got married, wanted to start a family, and all of our family was on the East Coast. So that's when East Carolina came along. And I had an opportunity to work under a gentleman, Nick Floyd. Nick was, his dad was the athletic director at Indiana for a long time, had a lot of connections in South Carolina. And, Nick actually took over the Louisiana Monroe AD job just after I got the job here at Eastern Michigan. And so he's somebody that I've always leaned on, and he's kind of like a father figure to me. And we have Jimmy Bass, who is at UNC Wilmington, athletic director, who I work for at East Carolina. And then, moving on to Mississippi State, Scott Strickland. There's no better person to emulate and to have as a mentor, or somebody that I can pick up the phone and call. And for him to take a chance on somebody he didn't know, we had no connection. We had mutual friends. But for him to hire me at Mississippi State, but then also give me the opportunity when he left to talk to the president and feel like I could fill that role, even just on an interim basis, meant a lot to me. And so he's somebody that I really look up to and still talk to quite a bit, and bounce these crazy COVID ideas and everything else that's going on. So I've been really fortunate along the way, and just kind of excited where I'm at here. And Eastern's been really good to me, and we've done a pretty good job here.
No doubt, man. Well, and you mentioned some great coaches along the way there, and some folks that I've known a long time on the administration side. So you've had some good folks that you've worked with. I read an article in some of the things that I was looking through here, where you made the comment that you've always been at places where you had to outwork people, right? And you got to have a strong work ethic in this business regardless, right? But unpack that for me a little bit. When you say outwork people, you've obviously got some opinions about what it meant at those particular places, but as it relates to, let's even talk about your situation today, right, at Eastern Michigan. You guys have had some athletic success for sure, and you're in a good league, a really good league, a competitive league, right? And so, when you say outwork folks, to you, what does that mean, Scott, in your day-to-day walk?
Yeah, well, part of it is financial. That at Eastern Michigan, we're at the low end of our budgets in the MAC. Now, what I do like about the MAC, you said we're in a good league. The delta between the top budget and the low budget is not as great as some of the other leagues. So we're pretty fortunate in that. And so even at East Carolina, we were striving to try to move up, get in the Big East at the time, and work on things. And we just knew we had to roll up our sleeves and work a little bit harder to try to have that opportunity. And here at Eastern, I've got the smallest staff, and Julie Cromer would probably argue she does, but we always kind of go back and forth depending on the week who has the smallest staff, and I have the second smallest budget, and so we have to do more with less, and so that's kind of been, to me, my MO. And Mississippi State doesn't have the same dollars as Texas A&M, and doesn't have the same dollars as Alabama, but you know what? We have great people that work really hard. And then rolling up the sleeves part is actually creativity. We've got to be really creative and think outside the box on how can we do something different with less to get more, and then get people to rally around something like, I can't believe they're doing that, and having pride. And so that's something that I've worked on here is making the culture where people are prideful of the university and they have pride in our athletic department, which for a long time here, really, we struggled with that. People didn't want to associate with athletics just because our football program wasn't very good, and basketball hadn't made an NCAA tournament. So those are things that people associate with the university. And so we're working to, just grind a little bit harder, hire good people, take good care of them the best we can. I know I can't pay my staff like I would like to, but I can certainly thank them. I can certainly care about them and treat them as I would want to be treated, and that goes a long ways towards getting the most out of people. And so that's my roll up the sleeves type mentality there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think that's intriguing out of that personally, you talk about some big budget schools, and of course I was fortunate enough to work for a couple of those. You become, at those type schools, as you know from your time at Mississippi State, you can become a specialist, right? You sort of get in a pathway, and whereas if you're working in a school that maybe has fewer staff or maybe not as big of a budget, you become more of a generalist. And at the end of the day, while you in particular may have come up from what most people refer to as the external side of the industry, as you know now, when you become an athletic director, you can still you still have your strengths or your background, but you have to become a generalist, right? Because of all the different constituent groups that you're interacting with. And so maybe let's visit a little bit about that for a second. Was that a learning experience for you, having had that happen? I mean, you're on the external side, and now we can talk about becoming an athletic director, right? But you never know until you're actually in the chair. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always had, I sold myself here on the fact that I could help get, butts in seats, and that I could market and promote. And that's what I was really good at Mississippi State. I built a good team, and kind of had that niche. But you're right, you get in the chair and you don't realize what fires are actually out there, from whether it's compliance or HR or whatever. But I think the one thing that even I was uncertain of in coming here was the fundraising side of it. I had people. It was maybe the one knock against me that I didn't oversee fundraising. I actually hadn't. I got to go out a couple times. Bo Hempill at Mississippi State let me go on a couple donor visits with him, but I hadn't really done that. And I kept telling people it's just relationships. It's just relationships, and we've got to do that. And so when you think of all the different areas of concern, I guess that I even doubted myself a little bit was, am I going to be able to fundraise? It quickly learned that that's just relationship building and letting people know that you care about their program and it's their university, and have had a lot of success, a lot more success than even I thought we might be able to. I was told when I took the job, there's no money here and there is no fundraising capabilities, and instead we've just set records and have done a really good job, and we're going to continue to do that.
Well, evidence of your football facility, which you showed me a few weeks ago, is a direct example of that work, right? And so it's two things: fundraising, right? It is definitely relationship building, and particularly in college athletics, we have this notion of, we know that we have something that folks want to invest in, and there's a passion about, and that's critical in fundraising. And then there's the at the end of the day, you've got to make the ask, right? And you're a competitive person. And so it's learning when's the right time to segue that relationship into a more formal ask. And look, sometimes folks are so passionate about the program, they're actually going to ask you how they can help. And that's more of the layup type deal. But most of the time you're having to lean in and make the ask. And so, and I'll say this too, Scott, having been, in development in my early career and then becoming an AD, donors want to hear from the athletic director, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they want to hear from the athletic director, and you got a greater chance of closing, in my opinion, when that ask does come from an athletic director, because the donor aligns with the strategic vision of the AD and it's coming directly from the AD. So kudos to you for leaning in on that and the success that you guys have had. So the football facility is coming along, and I know you're finishing out the fundraising on that. What's next on the facility horizon for you there, or is there anything that's sort of immediately staring you in the face?
Yeah, I would say, you're right on. To me, I have to have a vision for what's next and how are we taking care of our student athletes. And I always tell people, one of the greatest things I can do for Eastern Michigan is fundraise for our student athletes and get the facilities and the things that we need here. And so we did finish up. We're finishing up the fundraising side of the football building, the Student Athlete Performance Center, which opened 2 years ago, and then we got the largest gift in school history, the whole university, of an $8 million gift for a brand new golf facility that we will start breaking ground in April and have a conclusion. It'll take about 10 months to complete, and we're actually putting that out at our golf course that the university owns and runs, and our teams are out there. So really excited about that project. And then we have future plans. We actually have a soccer lacrosse. We just added lacrosse. We have our first recruiting class here now, and then we'll start competing next year. So we're adding a soccer lacrosse turf and going to update a stadium for them. And we've kind of in phase one of that. I want to do a second phase with bleachers and press box and lighting. So that'll be kind of next. And then our track program here is phenomenal. We just had Olympic triple jumper, just missed a medal. And so we've had an Olympian in every Olympics since 1960 in our track and field program. So it's a great history. And so I want to do something, we need to get a new outdoor track. I want to get our track removed from our football stadium. It's kind of high schoolish, so it's something I want to work on there. So that would probably be my next project, because there's dominoes to that. Once you get the outdoor facility going, then you can move we have our throws and our throwing for track or for the field events in another spot. I want to be able to do more there. And so I have a different plan for everything. And then you just work with donors to see what they like, yeah. And a lot of times it's a spouse that has an interest in a certain sport, or it's a friend that, because not all of our donors are athletes, former athletes. They're just people that care about the university and want to help. So we got a
Yeah.
lot of things. I actually have a plan for every sport, and it just depends on who you talk to, hey, this is what volleyball needs right now, or this is what soccer needs right now, or this is what our tennis program would like to have. And some of them are small ticket items, and then there's others that are big ticket items. But it's been a different mindset because nobody here. So at Eastern Michigan, we had not built a building in 20 years. So we built the Convocation Center where I'm sitting right now as our basketball arena in 1999, and we had not built anything since. And so 20 years later, we built in 2019 the Student Athlete Performance Center, and now in 2022 the golf center will be done, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah. So you've got a nice football facility, a nice basketball facility for sure. And the locale of it in relation to your town and your campus is such that I would think it'd be very easy for fans to attend and park and get in and out and that kind of stuff. But you correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if I would call it on the outskirts of campus or maybe even separate from campus, the core campus, right? And so when you start talking about engaging students and bringing them to your athletic events, what do you do? Because I know there's folks that are listening to this that face this same thing, where their actual sports facilities and arenas are not necessarily in the very heart of campus. Well, how do you try to engage students into your facilities, given that it's not in the direct heart of campus?
Yeah, this is a real challenge for us, and I've had that at other places too. But we have what we call our West Campus, which is where all of our athletic facilities are, and we're about a crow's fly. It's about a mile, but drive it's a couple miles, and then we don't have a big student population on our campus as far as in the dorms and stuff. We're
Okay.
a 16,000 student body, but we only have about 3,500 that actually live on campus. So we're a commuter school that's really challenging for us. And so we try to think outside the box and just get creative with, we've tried like a student end zone down on the field with getting sponsors to give away pizzas and drinks and shirts and have you be a part of this, and get the band actively involved. We try to we've had a concert at a game that afterwards for the students, and again we're just trying to get them to help and come and see, and my goal is always to do it with the freshmen and make it so it's building tradition and having interaction. This year we actually had we've gone all mobile now, so we can actually get it to where somebody can sign up to be a part of our student organization. And we're at like 250, which is for a start, and we only started it 2 weeks ago, is not bad. But now that's a season ticket, so now we can do push notifications to them if they come into the stadium. We know they're there. We can send them hey, go pick up a prize or whatever that may be. And then we can even let them know when concerts are coming, or we've got, we were just talking about this. We do a Eagles Unite where we have a shirt that we give all of our student athletes, and they wear that shirt on our Eagle Unite game. So our soccer match next Sunday is an Eagles Unite. And so all of our student athletes are expected to go to that game, wear that shirt. Well, sometime, and so they wear them on campus too, and the dates are on there, so our student athletes know and our students know when those games are, and then we'll push notify to these students like, hey, this is the game that our soccer team wants everybody to come to, and try to push it. And then they go and have a good time, they see and interact with our football team or baseball team or whatever, and they see that, and then maybe they're more apt to come to other games. So those are the types of things that we're trying to do, and just being creative, because it is our biggest challenge. One of the other things that I think we've done a really good job is we try to have a Friday night football game and have it associated with move-in if at all possible. So my scheduling philosophy is to try to have a move-in day. And so what happens is we have a convocation with 2,500 freshmen here with their parents, and we do it at 4:00. And then we finish up and they walk out and go out onto the football field, and then we go and feed them. And the parents, that's their time to say goodbye to their kid, but they can stay and watch the football game as well. And so now we have an instant, 2,500 students in the stands. They get to have their first experience be a football game. and the band's playing, and then their parents are there, and some stay and some leave. So that's been a good one for us as well, to try to get them hooked in and be a part of what we're doing here.
That's great, man. I mean, that's unique, right? I haven't heard that before. So
Yep.
being creative is
Yep.
is really important. Hey, I'm gonna go back to the career track for just a second, because
Yep.
and you served as interim athletic director at Mississippi State for a couple of months there, and interim AD is an interesting title. It's an interesting place to be. Sometimes you're named interim AD and you're given some time, and the thought process is you're going to become the athletic director. Sometimes you're interim AD and you go through the interview process and it doesn't work out or whatever. Maybe sometimes you're just keeping the chair warm. But I would assume, first of all, that your counsel to those who have that chance to be in that role would be, if you're ever offered that chance by your chancellor or your president, number one, you should probably take that chance. But do you find that even though you would have wanted to be the athletic director, obviously, but even though it was a shorter period of time, was that time frame helpful to you in that role, and in what way?
Yeah, so I would say absolutely, if you're offered the opportunity to be the interim, do it. You partly feel like you're going in blind a little bit, like, what am I getting myself into? Because if you've never been in the chair, you just don't realize. There are things that you just like, man, I didn't realize I'm going to have to deal with this, and this. But it was a great experience for me. Obviously, I can say that I was an athletic director of an SEC school. I mean, that's somebody trusted enough in me to run that department, whether it was for a month or 2 months or a week. And at the time when the president called and asked me if I would do that, I have no idea how long that's going to be. Is this going to be a 6 month? And is this, am I kind of getting a tryout here? Or is it going to be really quick? And, there are times in our life that there are things that we might do differently. I never actually applied for the job at Mississippi State. I was not really in the running at the time, and there's a part of me that's kicks myself that I didn't do that, but it was strategic with Coach Cohen at the time and who he reported to me, and we worked together to. We thought it was best to kind of manage it that way, and John's been just absolutely great to me, and so it's all worked out pretty well, and I was able to obviously get the job here. But I would really recommend it if you have the opportunity. And then it wasn't like I'm coming in and changing anything. Scott Strickland had done such a phenomenal job in leading our department. All you're trying to do is not screw it up. Let's just keep everybody at ease. Let's figure out what this transition is going to be, and then let me help the next AD make that transition very smooth. And so there was no pressure when John got the job. Everything just kept flowing the same, and so it actually worked out really well. And I was not a threat to anybody coming in because I was very comfortable with the team that we had built, and really just loved Mississippi State and the things that we were doing there.
Well, and very shortly thereafter, you became the athletic director at Eastern Michigan too, right? So maybe that was a part of that process for sure. So let me shift gears on you just for a second. I'm intrigued by what you're seeing as it relates to the transfer portal at Eastern Michigan. So, I could theorize that you have the opportunity when you have athletes that maybe stand out to get them, to have somebody try to pickpocket that. I can also see a scenario where there are highly recruited, highly touted athletes that go to, let's call it a Power 5 school, and they feel like they're not getting the playing time, and you get the supposed benefit of that. In the chair you're sitting in right now, just your perspective on the portal and how it may or may not be having a positive or negative effect at your place.
Yeah, I would. We're very fortunate at Eastern Michigan, especially in our football program, that we had very, very few people wanting to go in the transfer portal. I think we were probably one of the lowest percentages, and we have some continuity in our program right now. We have a great football coach that I just love. He's done a great job, and So we're very fortunate in that. Now, where I actually have concerns is some of our other sports that didn't have the one time, whether it's baseball, had to sit out. You've got a star shortstop that all of a sudden you play a midweek game against a Power Five, and they see how good that person is, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm going to get that kid to come over here, and then all of a sudden you just lost your best player. I've let this play out a little bit, though, and actually I think I read this just in the last few weeks here, where the percentages of the Power Five are actually transferring, to other Group of Five, or other Power Fives, or actually it's a higher percentage are going to Group of Five. You're seeing a higher percentage of Power Five moving down to the Group of Five, so to speak, moving over to us, and versus only about 20% are actually moving up. So it's actually been probably better, and I think we can be strategic about it, especially in basketball. Basketball is one of those where it only takes 2 or 3 really talented transfers can all of a sudden flip a year really, really quickly. And so I'm trying to use it as a positive and tell our coaches, let's figure out how to be out on the front. Women's basketball, we've had 2 SEC transfers in the last 2 years. We've had a couple of Big 12 transfers, so we've actually been able to utilize it on the women's basketball side. And then, with Coach Heath now, we had a big turnover with the coaching hire. And so I think we have 11 new student athletes, of which like 7 or 8 of them are transfers, and then we have a couple of just freshmen that are coming in as normal. So it's been advantageous for us, but it certainly is one of those outliers that occasionally you're going to have somebody come pick it. But most of our kids are transferring down to in football it's down to FBS, or I've seen. When I see it come through and it pops up and says, hey, a transfer, and then I find out where they're landing. I think the last one I saw was like Robert Morris or something. So it's like, it's all like just usually a little bit of a downgrade or a lateral that is, and then some of them we want them to go. So it just depends.
Yeah. Well, and everybody's always trying to figure it out, right? To the best of their advantage. I don't know if it was tongue in cheek or serious, but I have one AD, Group 5 AD, that told me a few weeks ago that his basketball coach had said, hey, I may never recruit at the high school level again. Good basketball classes are so small. He felt like that they were at a place with some basketball significance that he could recruit and get his scholarships filled with P5 guys coming to his level. And, I say that as, hey, that's probably real, right? I hope that that's not his true feeling. He's going to still recruit at the high school level, but I thought it was an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and I would say to that, my only concern to that is that's a short-term, to me, a short-term coach that's trying to move on versus, Coach Creighton's done a good job with that on our football program where, he wants to get that 15 to 18 core freshman group that's going to help be sustainable over a 4 or 5 year period. But certainly we have gaps to fill, whether somebody's transferring out, we have somebody graduated, and it's just like, man, we got a hole to fill here and a hole to fill here. Let's go see if we can get them. And a lot of times it was junior college at the time. And now it's more who's in the portal that might be a good fit as well. So that's kind of opened that up. That can be eligible right away, which wasn't always the case. So, I would have some concerns on that, but I get it. I get the concept, especially in basketball. It's ripe for it, and then the kids want to play, and if they can't play and they find out they're not starting, they're putting their name in the transfer portal. It happens that quick, and it does make it challenging.
All right, we're going to shift to the speed round here. We're winding our way down in the conversation, so these are just sort of fun, quick hitters. You were a baseball player. And I played baseball coming up as well. Never played at the college level or anything, but inevitably when you're a baseball player and you're out on the sand lot or in the backyard, and depending upon when you grew up, there's a baseball player that you emulate or that you follow. For me, it was Charlie Finley's Oakland A's of the early 1970s and Vida Blue, because I was a left-handed pitcher. For you, who was that guy as a baseball player?
So I had a lot of people that I just really looked up to. I got the opportunity to meet Pete Rose when I was really young, and just the way he swung the bat and Mr. Hustle, and then I was a huge Tigers fan, and so growing up in the '80s, the early '80s with the '84 Tigers and Alan Trammell and Lance Parrish and Lou Whitaker and then Kirk Gibson and so I liked different things. Like I loved Alan Trammell because I was a shortstop. I loved how he played, but also loved Lance Parrish and his cool orange mitt and those. So
Yeah.
That was always those are the ones that I kind of emulated. Now I will tell you, I was fortunate enough to grow up in Kalamazoo, and was a year different from Derek Jeter, and so got to have the opportunity to play with Jeter, and I'll never forget those. We only played together about 6 weeks because he got drafted, and actually the last weekend after he got drafted and he was getting ready to sign his contract on Monday, he couldn't play, so I got to actually move back to shortstop. But while we played together, I moved to third because he was the man. So
There you go.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So let's say you had a night off, which I know those are rare. What are you doing with your wife and kids on a night off?
Yeah, so a couple things we like to do. My kids are very active. My daughter's a level 10 gymnast, very competitive, and then they're actually both running cross country as well. So I'm actually staying home this weekend, not going to football, so I can go watch them run because it might be the only weekend I get. But there's a place here in Ann Arbor that called the Cascades where you can actually go tubing down the river, and so it's something that we usually do a couple times a month in the summer, and then try to enjoy that. And then if it's the winter time, we're taking those same tubes and going down a hill of snow somewhere as well. So those are typically what we try to do around here to stay active.
Awesome. So last two. First one's really quick. You're sitting on the back porch in the summer. You got a bowl of ice cream. What flavor?
Oh, mint chocolate chip. I'm a mint
There
chocolate
you
chip
go.
guy.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Favorite sports moment while being athletic director at Eastern Michigan University?
So I would I have to say the Rutgers win my first year. And so we went to Rutgers in football, and we were, I want to say, 0-59 against Power 5 opponents, had never won. And then we went to Rutgers and won that game for our first Power 5 win, a Big Ten win. It was only my third game as the athletic director. And so that one was probably my biggest moment. Now, since we went on the next year and beat Purdue at Purdue, and we beat Illinois the following year at Illinois. And so those three moments have been really significant. And I will say we also won the Triple Crown in track and field, which I just thought was phenomenal to win cross country, indoor and outdoor. And so we had a lot of pride with that group as well. And then I just had a great moment this year with our gymnastics program. So my first hire when I got here was our gymnastics coach in Katy, Minnesota, and hiring Katy. And so 4 years later, she wins her first championship and doing it the right way and has great kids. So that was a pretty cool moment for me to see my first hire actually be able to win a championship in that 4 year span.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, look, we're going to close it out. I will tell you this. This is to leave the audience hanging for the Scott Wetherbee interview part 2. I do want to sometime come back and visit with you about, I saw where you work in a air filter plant, folding the paper filters. And I worked in a paper mill when I was kind of, coming up in college. Those are jobs that really make you or break you, and you go, hey, I'm not sure I want to do this for a living. So we'll save that for next time. You and I can talk about that one offline, but I think that was kind of an intriguing little story along the way, right?
Man, you've done your homework on this. I haven't shared that with too many people, but yeah, I was one of those temporary and I went to a temporary agency, and then that's where they placed me. And I'm getting, they have these spirals, and you got to keep them oiled down and everything. I learned really quickly that a high-end filter and a low-end filter is really not a whole lot of difference except a logo, because I was doing both on the same line.
Oh, it's funny. Well, I worked the graveyard shift at a paper mill, during college, and that'll make you decide really quickly what you want to do with your life, if that's the life. And look, it's a great life in many ways for folks who want that, but I was like, hey, I don't think this is what I want to do from now on, right? So, hey, look, I thank Scott. Thanks for being with me today. This has been fun. It's been a good to catch up with you, and I appreciate continuing to build my friendship with you personally, and so thanks for joining us.
Mike, thanks for having me on. It's been great getting to know you, and certainly look up to everything that you've done, and just glad that we could have the conversation and continue the friendship.
Same here, man. So you've been listening to From the Chair. I'm your host, Mike Hamilton, and today's guest has been Scott Wetherbee from Eastern Michigan University. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.